What crime did he commit, sir? You need to detain him now. He looks dangerous. Get that camera off before this gets worse. I'm not turning it off, Sergeant.
Officer Deshaun Miller was only 25 years old. He had been a police officer for just 7 months, but many people in the city already knew his name. Before joining the police force, Deshaun worked as a youth mentor at a community center. He helped troubled teenagers stay out of gangs and finish school. Families trusted him because he listened before speaking. But inside the police department, things were very different. Older officers laughed at Deshaun and called him too soft for the job. They believed fear worked better than kindness. Most supervisors cared more about arrests than helping people. In rich neighborhoods, officers acted tougher and more aggressive because they wanted to look powerful in front of wealthy residents. Sergeant Marcus Kane was one of the worst. Kane believed officers should never show emotion. He often told rookies, "Compassion makes cops weak." Younger officers stayed quiet around him because they feared punishment or embarrassment. Deshaun tried to ignore the insults, but every shift felt harder than the last. That same night, 16-year-old Tyler Bennett was walking through the neighborhood alone in the rain. Tyler was autistic and became overwhelmed easily when people shouted at him. He loved animals more than anything, especially his golden retriever, Charlie. When Charlie escaped through the backyard gate earlier that evening, Tyler spent hours searching for him. But wealthy residents did not see a scared teenager looking for his dog. They only saw a boy in a black hoodie walking near expensive homes late at night. One nervous caller told dispatch, "There's a suspicious kid hiding near our street." Before sunrise, Sergeant Kane would learn that fear and force could destroy a department faster than any criminal ever could. Rain poured heavily across the quiet neighborhood as police dispatch calls came in one after another. Nervous residents reported seeing a teenage boy walking between large homes and looking near garages. One caller claimed the boy was trying to break into cars. Another said he was acting strange and refusing to answer questions. Within minutes, several patrol cars rushed into the area with flashing lights cutting through the dark streets. Tyler Bennett froze when the first police car stopped beside him. He held Charlie's leash tightly in one hand while looking around in fear. The loud sirens and bright lights overwhelmed him immediately. He started pacing near the sidewalk, breathing fast and covering his ears. Water dripped from his black hoodie as officers jumped out of their vehicles shouting commands at him from every direction. "Put your hands up," one officer yelled. "Stop moving," another screamed. Tyler tried to answer, but the pressure around him became too much. His words came out broken and unclear. The officers moved closer, surrounding him near a driveway. One veteran officer placed his hand on his taser and warned Tyler not to try anything stupid. Another officer accused him of resisting because he would not make eye contact. Tyler's panic quickly became worse. He rocked back and forth while gripping the leash tighter and tighter. Officer Deshaun Miller arrived seconds later and immediately noticed something different about the situation. Tyler did not look angry or dangerous. He looked terrified. Deshaun watched the teenager repeat the same words under his breath while struggling to breathe normally. Then he noticed a small autism awareness bracelet on Tyler's wrist. Papers were sticking out of Tyler's jacket pocket. One flyer showed a picture of a golden retriever with the words, "Missing dog, Charlie." Deshaun quickly understood what was happening. Tyler was not trying to rob houses. He was searching for his lost dog while trapped in complete sensory overload. But the other officers only saw a nervous teenager refusing commands. Sergeant Marcus Kane stepped forward angrily and shouted, "Get him on the ground now before this gets worse." Tyler flinched hard at the sound of Kane's voice. His breathing became even faster as tears mixed with the rain on his face. The officers closed in tighter around him. Then Deshaun slowly stepped between Tyler and the other officers. He lowered his voice and kept his hands relaxed at his sides. "Hey buddy," Deshaun said calmly. "Take a breath. You're safe with me." For the first time since police arrived, Tyler looked directly at someone without fear. The entire scene suddenly became quiet. Deshaun slowly knelt down on the wet pavement so he would not look threatening. Rain continued falling around them while the other officers stood nearby with tense faces. Tyler's hands shook badly as he held the leash against his chest. His breathing came fast and uneven, and every loud sound made him flinch. Deshaun kept his voice soft and steady. "You're okay," he said gently. "Nobody here wants to hurt you." Tyler looked down at the ground for several seconds before finally speaking in a weak voice. "Charlie ran away," he whispered. "I can't find him." Deshaun's heart sank immediately. Everything suddenly made sense. Tyler was not dangerous at all. He was a scared autistic teenager searching for his missing dog in the middle of the night. But before Deshaun could explain, Sergeant Marcus Kane stormed forward angrily through the rain. "Stop treating him like a victim," Kane barked. Tyler jumped at the sound of the shouting and covered his ears again. "Put him in cuffs now," Kane yelled at Deshaun. "You're making us look weak in front of these people." By now, residents had stepped outside their homes with phones raised high in the air. Some stood under umbrellas while recording everything happening on the street. One woman quietly asked another neighbor, "Why are they screaming at that poor boy?" The flashing lights reflected across windows and wet driveways while Tyler became more overwhelmed by the second. But Deshaun refused to escalate the situation. Instead of grabbing Tyler, he turned toward the other officers and calmly asked them to give the teenager some space. A few officers looked confused, but they slowly stepped back. Deshaun then walked to one patrol SUV and lowered the flashing lights. The street became a little calmer without the bright colors hitting Tyler's face every second. "Tyler, listen to me," Deshaun said softly as he returned. "Take a slow breath with me. In, and out. Good job. You're doing okay." At first Tyler struggled to follow him, but Deshaun stayed patient. He repeated the breathing slowly again and again until Tyler's shaking finally began to ease. After several minutes, Tyler lowered his hands from his ears and looked less afraid. The tight grip on Charlie's leash slowly relaxed. One veteran officer leaned against a patrol car and laughed quietly at the scene. "Rookie thinks he's a babysitter," he muttered. Several officers smirked, but Deshaun ignored them completely. Right then, he cared more about protecting Tyler than impressing anyone in the department. Sergeant Marcus Kane's face turned red with anger as Tyler slowly began calming down. Instead of feeling relieved, Kane looked embarrassed that a rookie officer had taken control of the situation in front of residents. Rain continued pouring across the neighborhood while flashing patrol lights reflected off the wet streets. Several people stood nearby recording every second with their phones. Kane marched directly toward Deshaun and pointed a finger inches from his face. "You embarrassed this department," he shouted. "You sided with a suspect over your own officers." Deshaun stood up slowly, trying to stay calm even while officers watched closely around him. "He's not a suspect," Deshaun replied firmly. "Tyler didn't commit any crime. He's autistic, he's scared, and he needed help. If we pushed harder, this could have turned deadly." But Kane refused to listen. His pride had already taken over. The more Deshaun spoke calmly, the angrier Kane became. "I don't care about excuses," Kane snapped. "You ignored direct orders in front of civilians." Tyler flinched again at the shouting while holding tightly onto Charlie's leash. Deshaun glanced toward the teenager and could already see the panic returning to his face. Kane then grabbed his radio and loudly announced that Officer Miller was being removed from the scene immediately. He ordered another officer to take Deshaun's place and said he would recommend a full disciplinary review along with suspension papers. Several veteran officers exchanged smirks. One quietly shook his head as if Deshaun had ruined his own future. The neighborhood residents continued recording without saying much, but their faces showed growing anger toward the department. One man muttered, "That rookie was the only officer acting normal." A few minutes later, a car suddenly pulled into the street. Tyler's mother jumped out crying hysterically after hearing police had surrounded her son. She rushed toward Tyler and wrapped her arms around him tightly while he broke down sobbing in the rain. my baby," she cried. "Are you okay?" One nearby resident explained that Deshaun had protected Tyler when the other officers were yelling at him. Tyler's mother turned toward Deshaun with tears streaming down her face and hugged him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered emotionally. "Thank you for seeing my son as a person." Kane rolled his eyes at the scene. "Hope playing hero was worth your career," he mocked coldly. Deshaun said nothing back. He simply looked toward Tyler and his mother standing safely together beside the patrol SUV. Deep down, he already knew he would make the same choice all over again. Nearby, one woman lowered her phone slowly and whispered to her husband. "These officers just ruined themselves." Only a few hours after the incident, videos from the neighborhood began spreading across social media. One resident uploaded a clip with the title, "Rookie Cop Saves Autistic Teen from Aggressive Police." Within minutes, thousands of people were sharing it across different platforms. By midnight, the video had already reached millions of views. The footage showed Tyler standing in the rain while officers screamed commands at him from every direction. Viewers watched the terrified teenager cover his ears and struggle to breathe as flashing lights surrounded him. The camera then captured Sergeant Kane shouting angrily while officers moved closer with their hands near their tasers. Tyler looked completely overwhelmed and scared. Then the video showed Deshaun stepping calmly between Tyler and the officers. People online watched him lower his voice, ask the officers to step back, and help Tyler breathe slowly. The difference between Deshaun and the other officers was impossible to ignore. While everyone else acted aggressively, Deshaun treated Tyler with patience and kindness. Comments flooded social media faster than the department could react. "That rookie prevented a tragedy," one person wrote. "This could have ended horribly," another comment said. "Fire the sergeant immediately," thousands of others demanded. Parents of autistic children shared emotional messages about how dangerous situations like this could become. Many people praised Deshaun for understanding Tyler's fear instead of treating him like a criminal. Others questioned why the officers became so aggressive toward a teenager who was clearly struggling. By early morning, major news stations had picked up the story. Television reporters replayed the footage while discussing police treatment toward people with disabilities. Civil rights activists demanded answers from the department and called for a full investigation. Autism advocacy groups also released public statements supporting Tyler and his family. Inside police headquarters, panic spread quickly. Supervisors rushed through hallways while phones rang non-stop. Officers whispered nervously about the viral video playing across the country. Some worried about lawsuits. Others feared losing their jobs. Sergeant Kane tried acting calm, but even he could not stop the damage anymore. Then things became even worse for the department. A second video surfaced online from Deshaun's Bodycam. This footage captured Kane screaming directly into Deshaun's face while Tyler cried beside the patrol SUV. Millions of viewers now saw not only how the teenager had been treated, but also how the department punished the only officer who tried to protect him. The next morning, Officer Deshaun Miller drove toward police headquarters with a heavy feeling in his chest. He barely slept after the events from the night before. Part of him expected to be suspended the moment he walked through the doors. Another part feared his career was already over. As he turned onto the street near headquarters, he immediately realized things had become much worse than anyone expected. Dozens of protesters stood outside the building holding signs and shouting angrily. Some signs read, "Protect Disabled Children," and "Officer Miller did the right thing." Reporters crowded the sidewalks while cameras pointed toward every police vehicle entering the parking lot. News vans lined the street, and officers struggled to push through the growing crowd. Deshaun noticed several people clap quietly when they recognized him walking toward the entrance. Inside headquarters, complete panic had taken over. Internal affairs investigators moved quickly through the hallways carrying boxes filled with files and Bodycam records. Supervisors whispered nervously near office doors while phones rang non-stop. Some officers avoided eye contact with Deshaun completely. Others looked embarrassed after seeing the viral footage online. Nobody seemed confident anymore. An emergency meeting was called inside the main briefing room. Every officer involved in the incident sat in silence as the police chief entered carrying printed reports. His face looked cold and furious. A large screen displayed paused Bodycam footage from the night before. The room became completely quiet. The chief pressed play. Bodycam audio filled the room as officers were heard laughing and making cruel jokes about Tyler. One voice said they needed to scare the kid straight. Another officer laughed while Tyler panicked in the background. The footage then showed Deshaun calmly trying to stop the situation from getting worse while Sergeant Kane screamed orders at him. Silence filled the room after the video ended. Kane cleared his throat and finally spoke. "We followed standard procedure," he said nervously. "The suspect refused commands and..." "He was not a suspect," the chief snapped sharply. Kane tried speaking again, but another officer suddenly stood up from the back of the room. Everyone turned in surprise because veteran officers rarely challenged supervisors publicly. "No sir," the officer said quietly. Officer Miller was the only one acting professionally last night. The room froze. Several officers slowly lowered their heads while others stared at Kane in silence. For the first time in years, nobody rushed to defend him. Deshaun could almost feel the power shifting inside the room. Everything Sergeant Marcus Kane had built through fear and intimidation was finally starting to collapse around him. Only 2 days after the incident, Tyler Bennett's family hired a team of attorneys. News cameras gathered outside the law office as Tyler's mother spoke emotionally about what happened to her son. She explained that Tyler had not slept properly since the night police surrounded him in the rain. Loud sounds now caused him to panic, and he became terrified every time he saw flashing lights outside their home. Doctors later confirmed that Tyler suffered serious emotional trauma from the encounter. Medical reports showed he experienced panic attacks severe enough to require hospitalization. His therapists also noticed communication regression, something that had taken years of hard work to improve. Tyler stopped speaking normally for several days after the incident and refused to leave his room without his mother nearby. The lawyers moved quickly against the police department. During a packed press conference, they accused officers of discrimination and excessive intimidation toward a disabled teenager. They argued that Tyler's disability rights had been ignored from the moment police arrived. The attorneys also claimed the department used reckless escalation instead of proper de-escalation techniques. News reporters wrote down every word while cameras broadcast the conference live across the country. Inside headquarters, internal affairs investigators uncovered even more problems. Old complaint files showed Sergeant Marcus Kane had been reported several times before for aggressive behavior. Some complaints involved vulnerable civilians, including elderly residents and people with mental health struggles. Other reports revealed Kane often intimidated rookie officers who questioned his actions. Many younger officers stayed silent because they feared losing their jobs or damaging their careers. Federal investigators soon entered the case after the viral footage continued spreading online. They reviewed Bodycam videos, radio calls, and witness statements from everyone involved. Investigators privately interviewed Deshaun for several hours inside a small conference room. At first, he answered carefully, trying to remain professional. But eventually the pressure and emotion became too much to hide. Deshaun lowered his eyes and quietly admitted the truth. "I honestly thought somebody was going to hurt that kid," he said. The room became silent after his words. Investigators replayed the footage again and again, studying how quickly the situation escalated before Deshawn stepped in. They noticed officers shouting over one another, reaching toward weapons, and surrounding a terrified autistic teenager who never threatened anyone. The deeper investigators looked into the incident, the clearer one thing became. Without Deshawn Miller's actions that night, the situation could have ended in complete disaster. Public anger spread across the country like wildfire. The video of Tyler's arrest and Deshawn's calm response played on every major news channel. Social media stayed flooded with comments, debates, and replayed clips. People could not understand how a scared autistic teenager was treated like a criminal while the only calm officer was punished for trying to help. Sergeant Marcus Kane's career collapsed in real time. He was removed from duty within days. Internal investigations became public as more evidence surfaced. Former colleagues who once supported him began to distance themselves completely. Some officers even refused to speak his name in interviews. Online, his actions were replayed and criticized by millions of viewers who demanded accountability. As pressure grew, Kane was formally placed under full investigation. His authority was stripped, and he was banned from active field work. The department released a short statement, but it did little to calm the public. Protesters still gathered outside police buildings, holding signs calling for justice and reform. Kane, once feared inside the department, was now being openly questioned and exposed by the same system that protected him before. Other officers involved in the incident also faced serious consequences. Several were suspended while investigations were completed. Some were forced into retraining programs focused on proper de-escalation and disability awareness. A few officers were placed under misconduct review for their actions that night, especially those who joined in escalating the situation instead of helping Tyler. While the department fell into chaos, Deshawn Miller's life changed in a very different way. His name spread across the country as people praised his actions. Autism advocacy groups publicly thanked him for understanding Tyler's condition and protecting him from harm. Many parents of autistic children shared emotional posts, saying they finally felt seen and protected. Messages began pouring in from across America. One message read, "Thank you for seeing our children as human beings." Another said, "You gave us hope that not all officers choose force over kindness." Deshawn became a symbol of what compassionate policing could look like when done right. Then came the moment that touched everyone the most. A few days after the incident, Tyler's missing dog, Charlie, was found by a neighbor several streets away. The moment Tyler was reunited with Charlie was recorded on video. In the footage, Tyler runs through a yard in the rain, crying and laughing at the same time as he hugs his dog tightly. Charlie jumps up on him, licking his face as Tyler refuses to let go. The video spreads online within hours. Millions of people watch silently as Tyler finally smiles again. For many, it was the emotional proof of what Deshawn had been fighting for all along. Weeks later, the city held a formal ceremony inside a large public hall. The room was full of reporters, families, police officers, and autism support groups. Cameras lined the walls as everyone waited for the final outcome of the case that had shocked the nation. The air felt heavy, not with fear this time, but with expectation and emotion. The police chief stepped forward first. He looked serious as he spoke into the microphone. Then he turned toward Tyler's family and gave a public apology for how the situation was handled. He admitted that the department failed to protect a vulnerable child and that mistakes were made that should never happen again. After that, the chief turned toward Deshawn Miller. The room became completely silent as everyone waited for his words. "Officer Miller reminded this city what real policing looks like," he said clearly. Deshawn stood still as applause slowly filled the room. Then the chief called him forward and presented him with a bravery commendation for his actions that night. He also announced his full reinstatement and offered him a promotion opportunity within the department. The applause grew louder as officers and civilians stood together, clapping in support. For the first time, Deshaun was not mocked. He was respected. But the most emotional moment came after the ceremony seemed to be over. Tyler slowly walked forward, holding Charlie's leash. He looked nervous as he stood in front of Deshaun. The room became quiet again as everyone watched closely. Tyler looked up at him and spoke in a soft voice. "You were the only one who didn't scare me." Those words hit the room deeply. Some people lowered their heads. Others wiped their eyes. Even officers who once doubted Deshaun stood in silence, finally understanding what had really happened that night. The ceremony ended with a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. Deshaun stood there quietly, not focused on the applause, but on the boy in front of him who finally felt safe again. One rookie officer almost lost everything for protecting a vulnerable teenager, but his compassion exposed fear, ego, and corruption hiding inside an entire department. In the end, the officer they called too soft became the only one people could trust. So what would you have done if you were Officer Deshaun Miller? Do you think he made the right choice? Should the department have been sued? Tell us what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share for more real-life body cam stories.